Across the world, there are destinations that make Earth's familiar landscapes seem completely different. Towering mountains rise above deep valleys, where a walkway clings to the cliffside and opens onto sweeping mountain views below. Colorful stretches of coral extend beneath crystal-clear waters, creating an entirely different world beneath the ocean's surface. Elsewhere, massive red sand dunes surround white clay pans with dark tree trunks standing motionless in the middle of the desert. These are just a few of the extraordinary landscapes still found across our planet. On this journey, we'll explore the most spectacular destinations to look forward to in 2026, where extraordinary landscapes and unforgettable experiences are still waiting to be discovered. Grindelwald First, Switzerland. Grindelwald First is a spectacular paradise with seemingly endless views at an elevation of more than 6,500 feet. The line between the ground and the sky seems to disappear. You will be amazed by the towering, permanently snow-covered peaks. The attraction that truly tests your courage is the first cliff walk. This steel walkway hugs the sheer cliffs, leading straight out to a glass observation platform suspended high above the ground. From here, you can take in a panoramic view of the tiny, fairy tale-like village in the valley below. There is also the First Flyer zipline. This experience lets you soar freely through the air, racing across the mountainside on an 800-meter steel cable at speeds of up to 84 kilometers per hour. A scenic trail leads to Lake Bachalpsee, a high-altitude mountain lake with crystal-clear, mirror-like water that perfectly reflects the majestic peaks beneath the golden sunlight. The combination of daring cliffside structures and majestic alpine scenery gives Grindelwald First its unmistakable character. Mount Schafberg, Austria. At nearly 5,850 feet, Mount Schafberg is famous for its 360-degree views overlooking several major lakes in the Salzkammergut region, including Wolfgangsee, Mondsee, and Attersee. On clear days, the views extend across multiple mountain ranges, with blue lakes nestled between layers of mountains stretching far toward the horizon. One of the most distinctive ways to reach the top is aboard the Schafbergbahn cog railway. Operating since 1893, the journey takes about 35 minutes, carrying passengers from St. Wolfgang to near the summit while climbing more than 3,904 feet in elevation. Several trekking routes with varying levels of difficulty are also available for those eager to conquer Schafberg. A suitable pair of shoes and checking the weather forecast beforehand will help you fully enjoy this picturesque landscape. Braunfosser Falls, Iceland. Braunfosser in western Iceland is one of the most unusual sights this landscape has created. Water seeps deep through the porous volcanic rock of Hallmundarhraun, quietly traveling beneath the ground before suddenly emerging along the riverbank. Instead of one large waterfall plunging from above, hundreds of white streams stretch for nearly 3,000 feet across black lava before spilling together into the blue river below. The contrast between water, rock, and vegetation makes the entire area look like a painting divided into layers of natural color. What makes Hraunfossa so remarkable is the impression that the entire lava field is pouring out water. A landscape born from fire has now become a place where water emerges from every crack in the rock, creating one of the spectacular destinations worth exploring in 2026. Niagara Falls, United States and Canada. Niagara Falls, located between the United States and Canada, has appeared in countless photographs, but from a distance, it is almost impossible to grasp the enormous volume of water constantly pouring over the falls. Horseshoe, American, and Bridal Veil Falls make up the system, with millions of cubic feet of water flowing over them every minute during periods of peak flow. On the river, boats carry passengers toward Horseshoe Falls. The distance to the wall of water quickly shrinks, mist surrounds the deck, and the roar of the falls overwhelms nearly every other sound. In 2026, Niagara Takes Flight adds a new experience, simulating a flight over Niagara with a domed screen, motion seats, and wind and mist effects. One experience puts you near the base of the falls, while the other takes you above them, offering two ways to experience the same enormous volume of water that has made Niagara famous for generations. Sossusvlei Desert, Namibia. Sunrise at Sossusvlei does more than illuminate the Namib Desert. It seems to transform the entire landscape minute by minute as the massive red dunes begin to emerge in the first light of day. Some dunes rise nearly 1,000 feet, their distinctive orange-red color coming from iron oxide coating each grain of sand. As the sun rises, one side of a dune glows brightly, while the opposite side remains in shadow, creating sharp curves stretching across the desert. Surrounded by these walls of sand is Deadvlei, a white clay pan where camel thorn trees that died centuries ago still stand dark against the cracked ground. At the exact moment the sun clears the dunes, three colors become almost completely separated: red sand behind, white earth below, and black trees standing motionless in the middle of Deadvlei. Bluff Knoll, Australia. More than 500 million years of erosion have left behind the rugged quartzite ridges of Bluff Knoll, creating one of the most distinctive landscapes in the Stirling Range of Western Australia. Rising to about 3,605 feet, it is the highest peak in the range, where massive cliffs overlook the valleys and broad plains below. This elevation also gives Bluff Knoll a cooler, wetter climate than the surrounding region. Fog, rain, and even occasional snow can cover its rocky slopes, while low clouds are pushed across the ridgeline by the wind, forming white streams that roll down the other side. But Bluff Knoll's significance goes beyond this spectacle. The Stirling Range is also an exceptional biodiversity region, home to more than 1,000 plant species and many native animals, including Carnaby's black cockatoos, echidnas, and even quokkas. In a part of Western Australia usually associated with sunshine and desert, Bluff Knoll brings together rocky mountains, clouds, wildflowers, and even snow in a single destination. Milpu Turquoise Pools, Peru. Hidden at an elevation of more than 11,000 feet in the Peruvian highlands, Milpu stands out with more than 20 turquoise pools cascading in tiers along a narrow canyon. Mineral-rich water flows over natural rock terraces, creating a striking turquoise color against the cliffs and vegetation of the Andes. Changing light throughout the day also shifts the color of the water through different shades, from pale blue to brilliant turquoise. The pools are connected by small waterfalls, forming a chain of water that extends deep into the canyon. For local communities, this water source is also tied to traditions that have endured for generations. Today, Milpu can be accessed from paths and viewpoints arranged around the canyon, while the waters are protected to limit impacts on the ecosystem. Beyond the ancient ruins that have made Peru famous, Milpu reveals a less familiar side of the Andes. More than 20 turquoise pools cascading in tiers across the highlands. Arlandsfjord, Norway. At Arlandsfjord, even massive cruise ships look tiny as they travel deep between the mountains of western Norway. This branch of the fjord stretches about 18 miles inland, with deep blue water surrounded by steep mountain slopes, forests, and snow-covered peaks. One of the most spectacular places to take in the entire view is Stegastein. The observation platform extends nearly 100 feet from the mountainside, more than 2,100 feet above the fjord, revealing Arlandsfjord below as it winds deep between the mountains. But the experience changes completely when you return to Flåm and step aboard a boat. The vessel leaves the harbor and heads straight into the water you just saw from above, while the mountain slopes begin rising on both sides. From Stegastein, the entire ship looks like nothing more than a tiny dot on the water. But once you are standing on deck, it is the walls of mountains surrounding you that reveal just how massive Fjord really is. Venice, Italy. Venice raises an almost unbelievable question. How can an entire city survive and function on water for centuries? The city sits on more than 100 islands within the Venetian lagoon, connected by hundreds of bridges and a network of canals winding between historic buildings. Here, the water serves as the streets. Gondolas, vaporettos, and water taxis travel along the Grand Canal, pass beneath the Rialto Bridge, and glide beside palaces whose facades open directly onto the canals. But the same environment that created Venice also continually challenges the city, as high tides can push water into its lowest areas. After centuries, Venice still operates according to a logic unlike that of most cities around the world. Where others need paved roads, Venice needs canals. Hierve el agua México. Standing out against Mexico's dry mountain landscape are two massive white cliffs shaped like waterfalls frozen in mid-cascade. This is Hierve el agua. They were formed by natural springs on the high plateau. As calcium carbonate-rich water flows over the edge of the mountain, minerals slowly accumulate on the cliff face. Over thousands of years, this process has built up layer upon layer of white mineral deposits, creating two rock waterfalls, the largest of which stands about 98 feet tall. Above them are blue mineral pools near the edge of the cliff, where water continues to flow across the rocky surface. Following the mountainside down to a lower elevation reveals the full shape most clearly. White mineral streaks extend from the top to the base of the cliff, making the entire mountainside look like a massive waterfall frozen in the middle of its descent. Studlagal Canyon, Iceland. It is hard to believe that the geometric rock walls lining Studlagil Canyon in Iceland were created entirely by nature. Thousands of basalt columns stand tightly packed in layers, many rising dozens of feet, with polygonal edges so uniform that they look as if they were cut and arranged by hand. These distinctive formations developed when ancient lava flows cooled, contracted, and fractured into elongated vertical columns of rock. Running between the two dark basalt walls is the Jukla River, which can sometimes turn turquoise when sediment levels decrease, creating a striking contrast between the black rock and the brightly colored water. What makes Studlagil especially remarkable is that much of its beauty was once hidden beneath the water. Only after the water level of the Jukla changed did the massive basalt walls gradually become exposed. Lake Attersee, Austria. Surrounded by endless green mountain slopes in the Salzkammergut region, Lake Attersee immediately draws the eye with its emerald blue water and impressive surface area of 17.8 square miles. It is one of the largest freshwater lakes in the region, reaching depths of more than 550 feet. Under favorable conditions, underwater visibility can reach around 80 feet. Near the shore, the lake appears a bright turquoise before slowly transitioning to deep blue as the water gets deeper, creating distinct layers of color across the same body of water. Mountain slopes and small towns surround the lake. During summer, the swimming areas along the shore become livelier as large numbers of people arrive to immerse themselves in the cool water. Lush green lawns fill with sunbathers alongside colorful swimming floats belonging to families. Attersee's beauty also left a profound impression on painter Gustav Klimt, who spent many summers beside the lake and turned the area into the birthplace of dozens of landscape paintings. Maras Salt Ponds, Peru. A vast white sea bursts into view in the middle of a barren rocky plateau at an elevation of more than 11,000 feet. The red earth slopes of the sacred valley resemble a giant honeycomb, with more than 4,000 shimmering salt ponds packed tightly into the mountain's side. This remarkable landscape originates from a single underground spring, quietly releasing warm, intensely salty water from inside the mountain to feed an ancient system of terrace salt ponds dating back to pre-Inca times. The intense sunlight beats down, transforming the entire valley into rippling bands of snow-white, creamy beige, and earthy brown. Narrow earthen ridges, barely wide enough for a single foot weave between the bubbling pools. To produce salt, local workers open earthen barriers, channel the salty water into ponds about 3 inches deep, then seal them again with mud and stone. Under the dry heat of the high-altitude climate, the water completely evaporates after a month, leaving behind a thick layer of raw minerals. Wooden rakes are then dragged firmly across the surface to gather the white crystals. Litleinsfoss, Iceland. Litleinsfoss in eastern Iceland looks like a waterfall placed precisely between 2 massive walls of rock, with rows of vertical basalt columns surrounding the nearly 100-foot cascade. The columns formed as lava cooled and contracted into elongated polygonal formations, with many reaching up to 65 feet tall. That sense of scale is exactly what makes Litleinsfoss so unusual. The waterfall is already quite tall, yet it still looks small between the dark basalt walls, standing out against the surrounding green mountainsides. Litleinsfoss sits along the hiking trail to Hengifoss, about 0.7 miles from the starting point, where you can view the entire formation from the opposite slope. From here, white water, black basalt, and green mountainsides all fit within a single frame, creating the unmistakable appearance of Litleinsfoss. Amalfi Coast, Italy. Running along the southern coast of Italy, the Amalfi Coast stands out for towns that have almost no room to expand horizontally, forcing homes to stack in layers along the cliffs above the Mediterranean. Positano shows this structure most clearly. Pastel-colored houses cover the steep hillside, connected by stone stairways, narrow passages, and courtyards positioned at different elevations. Below are beaches and small boat docks, while above, houses continue climbing the mountainside. The steep terrain has shaped the town vertically, rather than allowing it to spread along the coastline. Seen from offshore, hundreds of rooftops stack one above another, making Positano look as if the entire town is spilling down toward the blue Mediterranean. Paria Canyon, United States. Entering Paria Canyon, the strip of sky overhead narrows between two massive sandstone walls stretching across the Utah-Arizona border. Inside, the Paria River becomes a natural pathway through narrow rock corridors, curving walls, and layers of sandstone shaped over time by flash floods. The area also connects with Buckskin Gulch, one of America's most famous long slot canyons, stretching for about 16 miles through a maze of sandstone. But one of the most anticipated experiences is reserved for very few people. Overnight permits for Paria Canyon are limited to a maximum of 20 people per day. After hiking for miles, the sound of other people can disappear. All that remains is the water beneath your feet, two massive walls of rock, and a thin strip of sky above the canyon. Lindisfarne Tidal Island, England. Off the coast of Northumberland, Lindisfarne is an island you cannot reach whenever you want, because the only road from the mainland disappears beneath the North Sea when the tide rises. At low tide, the causeway emerges across the sand, allowing vehicles to drive directly onto the island. But wait a few hours too long, and seawater begins flowing back in, covering the road and cutting Lindisfarne off from the mainland. On the other side of that road, however, is an island with more than 1,000 years of history. Lindisfarne Castle stands on a rocky outcrop overlooking the North Sea, while the ruins of the priory recall the community that witnessed the bloody Viking raid of 793. Then the tide returns. The final vehicles leave the island, water gradually spreads across the sand, and the road you just traveled completely disappears beneath the sea. Nusa Penida, Indonesia. Nusa Penida's coastline seems to follow no fixed shape, with cliffs, circular coves, natural rock arches, and small beaches appearing around an island just off Bali. Most striking is Kelingking Beach, where a massive green-covered ridge extends straight into the ocean, wrapping around a strip of white sand beneath nearly vertical cliffs. Continuing along the western side of the island, Broken Beach takes on an entirely different shape. A circular cove opens within the rock, with a natural arch large enough for seawater to continuously flow beneath it. Between these stops, the road carries you from one cliff to another, with each viewpoint revealing another section of the coastline. Across a single island, the ocean has carved the rock into so many different formations that each area almost seems to have a coastline of its own. Poás Vulcano, Costa Rica. Just minutes earlier, you are surrounded by dense green cloud forest. Then at Poás, the landscape suddenly opens into a volcanic crater 4,000 feet wide. At nearly 8,900 feet above sea level, Poás remains an active volcano, with Laguna Caliente sitting inside the crater, its pale blue water standing out against grey rock and the continuous plumes of gas rising around it. What makes this place especially accessible is that you do not need to trek for hours to reach it. A short route leads to a viewing area near the rim of the crater. But Poas does not always allow a clear view into the crater. Clouds can cover it for several minutes, turning the visit into a waiting game. If the clouds part, the reward is directly below. Laguna Caliente, grey rock, and columns of steam rising from a volcano that is still active. Huacachina Oasis, Peru. In a region made almost entirely of sand, Huacachina concentrates a lake, palm trees, and a small town within a patch of green completely surrounded by the massive dunes of Ica. The lake, palm trees, and rooftops are packed closely together, while towering slopes of sand surround the entire oasis. From below, it looks like a small resort town, but as you climb higher, along the surrounding dunes, the sense of scale becomes increasingly dramatic. The buildings shrink into tiny dots. The lake fits neatly into the center, and beyond it, layer after layer of dunes continues with no visible end. Late in the day, sunlight sweeps across the desert, turning the sandy slopes golden orange as shadows gradually move toward the lake. It is this tiny patch of green, enclosed by layers of sand, that makes Huacachina look like a mirage in the desert, even though the town, lake, and palm trees in front of you are completely real. Serengeti National Park, Tanzania. At certain times in the Serengeti, the grasslands almost disappear beneath thousands of wildebeest and zebras moving across the plains at the same time. This is the Great Migration, a massive movement of more than 1 million wildebeest, along with hundreds of thousands of zebras and antelope across the Serengeti ecosystem, following the rains in search of water and fresh grazing grounds. During the right season, the herds stretch for miles, kicking up long trails of dust behind them, while lions and other predators continuously follow. The journey continues across vast grasslands and through river crossings, shifting again as the rainy season changes. From a safari vehicle, tiny dots first appearing in the distance can quickly merge into an enormous stream of animals stretching across the grasslands all the way to the horizon. Pamukkale Travertine Terraces, Turkey. Pamukkale's white hillside can easily be mistaken for snow, but the surface is actually travertine formed by hot water over thousands of years. Mineral-rich springs flow down the slope, leaving calcium carbonate to accumulate into white terraces and pale blue pools. What makes this place especially unusual is that you can directly experience part of this terrain. Shoes must be removed, and movement is restricted to designated paths to protect the travertine surface. Warm mineral water flows around your feet, white terraces extend ahead, and the ruins of Hierapolis, more than 2,000 years old, stand directly above. Pamukkale is therefore more than a place to observe. You actually step onto a geological wonder while water continues to shape it. Great Barrier Reef, Australia. The Great Barrier Reef may look like enormous bands of blue when seen from above, but the most spectacular part of this natural wonder only appears once you go beneath the surface. Stretching 1,400 miles off the coast of Queensland, it is the world's largest coral reef system, with nearly 3,000 individual reefs and hundreds of islands. Simply put on a mask and look below, and those patches of blue immediately become coral formations, schools of tropical fish, and sea turtles moving right in front of you. Each snorkeling or scuba diving site takes you into a different part of the ecosystem, from colorful shallow coral gardens to reefs farther offshore. When you are swimming among those coral formations, what becomes impressive is no longer how far the Great Barrier Reef stretches, but how much life can surround you within just one small section of water. Uluru, Australia. Uluru rises from the flat plains of central Australia like a massive rock formation suddenly emerging from the desert. Standing 1,140 feet above the surrounding ground, it is even taller than the Eiffel Tower. But its size is not what makes Uluru most remarkable. Quartz and iron oxide in the rock cause its surface to continuously change color with the light, from brilliant orange at sunrise to deep red as the day fades. Up close, the landscape reveals details hidden from a distance: caves, waterholes, deep grooves, and sites connected to Jukurpa, the system of law and knowledge passed down through generations of the Anangu people. As sunset falls, Uluru changes color minute by minute before disappearing into darkness, bringing one of the Australian desert's most spectacular transformations to a close. As the final images of this journey begin to fade, one thing becomes clear. 2026 still holds so many places around the world worth waiting for and seeing with our own eyes. Landscapes that seem as if they belong on a screen are actually out there, and what is even more remarkable is that we have only seen a small fraction of them. The world is far larger, more spectacular, and more full of surprises than we have ever imagined. So keep moving forward and searching for new horizons. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and join us as we explore more destinations that can leave you amazed from the very first moment. Because in a world with so much still unseen, the destination you are most looking forward to in 2026 may still be waiting ahead. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.